yeah, something on the pandemic, because I was interested to see what you had to say about the pandemic. Because the way I see it, even though there's still a ton of shows, there's not too many Squid Games now. Because in the pandemic, everybody was home. Like I was a big fan of
Yeah.
WandaVision. Like you just consumed all these shows. It's kind of like Peloton. Like the Peloton stock has dropped severely because everybody's out of the house. But the one thing I didn't realize is you remarked that actually publishing, right, the movie business, the film movie theaters tanked, but
Yeah.
the book business actually not only exploded during the pandemic, but it's been pretty consistent since then, where it didn't have the same ebb and flow like some of these other things like Peloton or sitting home doing Netflix and
Yeah.
chill.
I mean, book sales are down a little bit this year, but only because the pandemic was so dang high. Again, when people are just at home, that's what they have to do. That's what they comic books and manga and like any kind of thing that you can consume at home, and novels among them, were a huge boon during the pandemic. One of the things I kind of tracked during that was I talked to some interesting people who work in the kind of Kindle Direct publishing world. Because that, in the absence of an intermediary with a publisher, like a proper one of the big four, people can really, there's a supply and demand equation that is very rapidly settled. Essentially, when they find a new niche, they're able to kind of quickly get work on there much faster than publishers from a traditional world can. And it's kind of fun to kind of watch people's tastes evolve and, what's being satisfied by traditional publishing, particularly in genres like romance. But what you kind of found during the pandemic was that a new you saw a rapid change in what people were interested in. People were not interested in reading about zombies anymore because that was we had more than enough plague on our plates at that time. Instead, right. You saw kind of different genres rise. Some of them were like kind of clean and wholesome. So like, oh, we're going to have like a nice, anybody can read this. There's not going to be a lot in here that is objectionable, and it's just kind of puts a little sunny look on what's going on, right? And so you can kind of, we were able to kind of track some of the individual subgenres that were able to have fairly distinct trends during the pandemic that we couldn't watch in movies just because they simply weren't being exhibited,